Oh, Babin!
Blistering starts to a tennis match.
Shakespeare got it wrong. It wasn't King Lear. It's King Lear.
LeBron James with no regard for human.
Yuvraj Singh finishes things off in style.
This is a News Laundry podcast, and you're listening to NL Playoffs.
Hello and welcome to NL Playoffs. This is round 12 of our small podcast. My name is Gautam. I have with me my co-host Aniket. Aniket, say hello.
Hello world.
Hello everybody and a Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Aniket. Today is the 5th of January. We are recording this at around noon on the 5th. Aniket, welcome to India. How's the New Year's been?
It's been, nice. I don't know how to say. It's been a very interesting start to the new year. And I hope things get better. I think it's too early to say that, but I hope things get better really soon.
I mean, I've been reading the news that the cases will definitely rise in the future, coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks at least in India. Where we are in the United States, there's been a surge of COVID cases, but all experts are pointing towards the end of the pandemic, even though right now the situation or the number of cases seem high. But we're officially in year 4 of the pandemic, I guess. But yeah, hopefully it gets past us pretty soon, man.
Yeah, I mean, just be positive. It's that's why I said it's too early in the new year to start this depressing topic. But yeah, just hoping to be positive, and I think do the basics correct, right? The responsibility lies with us, so let's do the simple things correctly, and hopefully things work out.
And what better to be positive than to talk about sports, right? So like we typically do, if we have any 1 or 2 deep dive topics to discuss for this week, but looks like we do not have any of those deep dive topics, but we do have a lot of sporting action happening. So I will leave it to you first, Aniket, to talk about what we are going to cover today.
So I'm going to set the record straight up on the top that it's been a crazy couple of weeks for me. I'm guessing for you too, Gautam.
Yes.
So I've been traveling around. Unfortunately, I don't have a portable TV. And none of my accounts in the US actually work in India. I figured it out the hard way. So I'm actually lagging to keep up with the sports world, which at this time of the year seems to be flying by, actually. So there's just so many things happening.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to keep on track.
By the way, I'm in the same boat as you. I was not able to watch as much sport as I typically do, but I kept up with a few things. But then we always have social media, and we always have the news to keep track of what's going on. So what are we going to cover first, Aniket?
So we'll start with Premier League football, which has been super busy in the last couple of days. So I think they're playing almost every second day at this point.
Yeah.
And it's it's tiring for the viewers. So I just imagine how tiring it is for the athletes who literally show up and are putting 100% for 90 minutes and then coming back 3 days later. It's very interesting because a few folks are saying that at this point it's not about preparation anymore, but it's just about recovery, right? So you play a game and there is no time to recover. So folks are just there's no time to prepare. The focus is on recovery, and you just come back 2 days later and put your best 11 and see how that goes. I mean, that's kind of how it seems, at least from afar.
Yeah, I mean, without COVID itself, it's just so packed in the schedule, right? December has always been a busy season, especially for the Premier League. The rest of the leagues, the La Liga has a winter break. I think the Serie A does have a winter break as well. But the Premier League is an exception to this rule. They go the other way around and play as many games as possible. December has always been a busy time. There have been all of this chatter from Jurgen Klopp and Thomas Tuchel, and all of them are saying, look, it doesn't make sense to have these many games every week. It just does not make sense. And add to that, on top of it, after December, there's African Cup of Nations going on. So all of the African players are going to play the African Cup of Nations. So it is so hard. It must be so hard for the managers and the players to just plan, and for the players obviously to just stay fit and play the whole 90 minutes every other day.
And more often than not, it is during this period that titles are actually won or lost. Just this compact period, no matter how your form is, you have this African Cup of Nations and injuries that come up, and it almost always changes directions of team. I famously remember Arsenal being pretty close to a title finish, and then I think it switched to Leicester, and it was sometime around this period that fortunes changed. So it's pretty interesting. With that being said, let's delve in, Gotham, and talk about Premier League football. So there was a big game. It was Chelsea Liverpool, where the second and third teams in the table were actually playing against each other, and it seemed that this particular game would actually decide who would actually compete with Man City for the title. So just to give context to our listeners, currently the table is set up where Man City is at 53 points, so they're at the top of the table with 21 games played, and second is Chelsea with 10 points behind, and at third is Liverpool at 42. So they're 1 point behind Chelsea. And what actually happened for this Chelsea-Liverpool game was super interesting, because the game ended in a 2-2 draw, where the Blues actually came back to secure a draw. And it was a very interesting game. I obviously, like I said at the top, I didn't catch the full game, but I did see extended highlights. So do you have any thoughts? Did you watch the game?
I did watch the game. I missed most of the first half, but I watched the whole of the second half, which meant that I missed out on a lot of good action in the first half. But if you look at it from a Manchester City's perspective, right, this was the ideal result. They would have hoped that the game would end in a draw, and that Liverpool and Chelsea would just split points, because that would mean that both of them were far enough behind them. So yeah, 2-2 was an ideal result for Man City as far as that goes. It was just a breathless first half, man. Second half, I think things seemed to settle down quite a bit, but first half was just breathless. Liverpool were just relentless in their pressing, of course, but they're just constantly attacking. They went up 2-0. I mean, I guess Chelsea is a good quality side too. They came back and evened things up just at the stroke of halftime, and it ended 2-2.5, and that's how the game ended. Literally in the 6th or the 7th second, I don't know if you saw this, Aniket, Sadio Mane had this flailing elbow on Cesar Azpilicueta. I don't know if it got checked by VAR or not, but the referee immediately gave a yellow, but on further evaluation, I think it was a red. But because it was so early in the game, some things happen based on circumstance, right? So because it was literally the first seconds of the game, I think Mane got away.
Yeah, and I also don't envy the refs in such situations, right? Like, it's so early in the game, it's a title deciding game. I mean, refs are supposed to be nonchalant, not involved in the title race because they are neutral, but it does build a lot of pressure when games start so aggressively, and there are decisions to be made so quick into the time. It does have an effect more often than not on the end result of the game. So it is tough, but it is what it is. The game did end in 2-2, which also was good in some sense. I mean, there was other things that came out. Like you said, Man City is now clear ahead with 10 points in the lead. But what was interesting was Chelsea did enter the stadium with a lot of drama happening in their dressing room. And yes. I'm referring to the Romelu Lukaku saga, for the lack of a better name. Have you been following that, Gotham?
So just before the game started, Lukaku gave an interview to, I think, an Italian reporter, right?
I think it was Sky Sports Italia, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it was. So apparently Lukaku asked for that interview. So he gave this interview to this Sky Sports Italian reporter and talked about how he was not 100% satisfied with his role at the club, and what came out of it was that he was not a happy camper in Chelsea, that because he was not getting enough reps or he was not getting enough starts, right?
He did also talk about how he sees himself going back to Inter, and how his time at Inter was really happy. And he pointed to the formation being played by Tuchel not working for him and stuff like that. So it did seem like it was an interview to basically state publicly that he was not happy, and which is a little surprising. And I've told this to you earlier, I think, in some of our conversations, is Lukaku's a great striker, right? He's really good with his back against the goal, and he scores. Yeah. He's a goal machine, at least with Inter he's been, and even he's done pretty well with Manchester United before that. But one thing I always thought was he lacked intelligence, and he showed it this time with the way he handled the situation. I thought what he did was super dumb, because just to update listeners to what's actually happening is that he's come out with an apology now, and he said that
to the fans, I'm sorry for the upset that I caused. Obviously, it's up to me now to restore your trust, and I'll do my best. And yeah, also, to the manager, I apologize, and also to my teammates and the board.
you don't have to be a rocket scientist to actually, think this through, because just the way he handled was an absolute disaster. Plus, he missed what could have been the biggest match for Chelsea's season, right? It was against your direct rivals, Liverpool, and he's been let out. And there are reports that Thomas Tuchel actually discusses with the senior players in the dressing room. So these are reports coming out. I think ESPN has an article on that as well. So, and the senior players were okay with him not playing. So he's boxed himself into one of the dumbest situations you can put yourself into. And especially since he's not doing spectacularly well, right? If he's going game in, game out, scoring goals and stuff like that, it would be in a different situation. But to come out publicly and talk against your manager and your team and your teammates particularly, it's sad. And he's come out, apologized now, so things are going back. I think he's going to be playing the League Cup game again.
So it's interesting that Chelsea's social media handles put this out, because clearly the PR department, as you said, reached out to Lukaku and was firefighting quite a bit. But I totally agree with you. There's no upside for his interview at all. What was he gaining out of it? Nothing. Typically what players do, you see this a lot of times with players like Pogba, is they don't go on the record and say it. Either his agent says it, or there are some strategically placed leaks that come out and reports here and there, or you see here all these social media murmurs. But usually the player is left out of any of this. But to give a record to give an interview on the record to a football reporter and says how he was dissatisfied just screams of immaturity to me. But yeah, we'll see what happens after this. But anyway, just going back to the game. So you never answered, Aniket. Do you think Mane should have been sent off or not?
I don't know. It seemed like a rough tackle. It's very easy for me to make a decision sitting on an armchair watching the replay thrice. Don't know how. I don't know even if the referee caught it, actually, to be honest. So
yeah, no, he did catch it. He gave a straight yellow.
Well, then I think it should, after seeing a replay, I mean, it should have been a red. But
I think with these situations, it's a job of the referee to be quote unquote as objective as possible, especially now with given the rules. If you have a flailing elbow to the face, that is dangerous play and you should be sent off. So Mane should consider himself a very lucky man.
No, I agree with that assessment as well. But then I try to have empathy towards referees, because it's a tough job, and I understand why he must have given a yellow, even though it's not right. According to me, it should have been a red. The rule book says it, so it's a matter of fact statement that it should have been a red. But I think it was basically to control the tempo of the game early on. Otherwise, things can unravel really fast once these kind of situations get out of hand. So that's my stand on it.
Oh, that makes sense. And as breathless as it was in the first half, everything became a chess match in the second half. Every team settled down. I think the managers came into play even more. That meant that it was more of a chess game than a back and forth game. But Salah seems to be just unstoppable right now. He's just clinical. He's scoring almost every game I watch him play. Mohamed Salah, I don't know if he's the best player in the league right now or not, but he's definitely there on the top two, I think.
Oh, for sure. I think at this point it's not debatable, right? And he's been super consistent season in, season out. Even you've seen Bobby Firmino go through a rough patch. You've seen Sadio Mane go through a rough patch. Even Mohamed Salah as well. Like last season, there was this period where you had this drought from the Liverpool front three.
Yeah.
But Salah has almost always found a way to get out of these situations, and he's been super consistent. I think any manager would just love to have him in his team right now.
Yeah. He's just relentless.
I wanted to conclude this Chelsea-Liverpool game by asking you, who was your favorite player on the pitch?
Oh, that's a great question. See, whenever Chelsea plays, I always look at Kante. He's just here, there, and everywhere. I'm surprised by how much stamina he has, how much running he does, how many times he's always in the right position to make an interception or win the ball. I think he also finds himself in very good offensive positions, which he still has a lot of room to improve, I think, because it's also that the opposition knows that he's not as good in front of goal. So I think he has a lot to improve on the offensive side of things. But man, is he so good in the defensive midfield position. Oh, he's just a treat to watch.
That was my answer, Gautam. So you stole my answer, and it's very interesting because he even had this crazy through ball that he puts in. I mean, this is
Yes.
this is with the related to the offense you spoke about. So he was all over the park, and he literally dominated it. What's very interesting is Frank Lampard, while he was a Chelsea coach, spoke about N'Golo Kante, and apparently he plays a match and the training sessions with the same intensity, which is super surprising to listen, because typically training sessions are much more easy. That's at least how I think folks take it. But yeah, he's a beast in the midfield, and he's a delight to watch.
Yeah, when I said he has a lot to do in the offensive side of things, I think I meant he should shoot more, I think.
For sure.
He's a really good passer for now. I think he's improved on that front quite a bit.
Absolutely. And with that, I briefly wanted to put in a word about Arsenal, Man City, because I think that's the game that helped City take this 10-point lead, wasn't it, Gotham?
Oh man, Arsenal were firmly in control. I thought they had the better game. They were the better side. Classic Arsenal, right? They give up a goal in the 93rd minute, and that's what happens. And City just stole it. It was a daylight robbery. 3 points.
Yeah, and there was also this penalty incident with Martin Odegaard, especially after Bernardo Silva scored his penalty. There were questions about that decision as well. I don't know. I saw the replay. I felt it was tough to make a call because the keeper did get a little bit of the ball, but then there was a stretched leg. So anyway, just my heart cried out for Arsenal. Like they played surprisingly well, actually. I didn't expect them to put on a fight like that, because I felt they dominated a large part of the game. And Bukayo Saka is, again, a very interesting player to watch out for. And I'm pretty sure he's going to do good things coming ahead.
Tell you what, it's heartening to see when your team has intent and they're playing well, or they seem to care. Unlike Man United, which we're going to talk about briefly, who are just mediocre, tepid, insipid, whatever you call them right now. Because don't get me wrong, last 5 matches, they won 3, drew 1, and they lost against Wolves last week. So it's not as bad as it sounds, but when you watch them play, you almost feel like they are not a cohesive unit. They're players. There are so many star players out there, or so many good players out there, but they don't seem to be able to perform as a team. You don't see them either pressing, you don't see them being fast on the counter attack. They don't seem to have an identity. They've changed coaches. Ralph Rangnick, he's still new. He's seen as this culture setter, right? So we'll see what happens. But man, at this moment, they just seem so uninspiring to me.
I don't have much to add to that, apart from the fact that I think even the players look distraught. I think we discussed this offline about Luke Shaw's comments of he had his post-match interview after Wolves, and
it's tough. I think you look at our squad, you look at our team, the players we have unbelievable quality, we have great quality, and I think sometimes quality isn't enough. I think, like I said, we need to bring the intensity, we need to bring, being more aggressive. Maybe the manager can bring some more ideas that what he wants on the pitch.
Yeah, we don't hear a lot of players saying that directly.
Well, I'm all for speaking truth. So you've got to say what you got to say. And that's one reason I give Romelu Lukaku also the benefit of doubt from our previous conversation, because he was just maybe being honest. I wanted to ask you a brief question, and let's keep this short. Why do you think United is struggling? Because they have the players, they have the manager. Ole was in control for some period of time. What is changing? Like, what's going on? Is it a tactical problem? Is it like just 11 players not being in sync? Because I did notice, especially with Arsenal, and we'll come to this in the next segment, is talking about Barcelona, where even Xavi Hernandez and Mikel Arteta are now putting in youngsters who are extremely passionate, coming on the field and leaving everything out there. So is it that our United are lacking people who don't understand what United stands for, or is it a much more complicated problem?
No, I think the problem is that people are banking on what United stood for all these years and saying, look, we are Manchester United and we are this, we are that, and let's go out there and win, be aggressive, right? That was what Ollie's mantra was all about. He was like, we are united, we're just going to win, we're just going to go all out, just keep attacking, and we will find a way to win. That is it. But these days you see a lot of teams in this professional world, especially, you need an identity, you need a style of play. You look at Man City, they have a style of play which is pass, short passes. You see Jurgen Klopp, the Gegenpress, right? You see Mikel Arteta, who comes from the same school as Pep does with tiki-taka style. So you need some kind of an identity to really forge some wins, because there are it's not like the old days where we just have a top 3 or a top 4. If the players don't have the manager's trust, then it's pretty much everybody for himself, right? Which I think is happening right now.
Yeah, I broadly agree with you, and you've made some really good examples. I just wanted to add 2 more. One was Antonio Conte, who's at Tottenham, and you can now see his team now playing the Conte way, much more fitter, much training harder, and it shows on the ground. And the other example, which at this point might not be the best example, is also Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea, because they were really brilliant at the back. They didn't score much, but they had a non-leaky defense.
Absolutely.
And now that they're leaking, you can see them actually going down. But it was a system that he had working. So I think I agree with you that it has to come down from the manager and the coach to have a system. You cannot have 11 brilliant players just step on the field and see what happens. I mean, that's at least not how modern football works anymore.
100% agree with you there. It's a different time we are living, and everybody's getting ahead of the game. So it's the gone of those days where you're just banking on the club's legacy and saying, yeah, we can do it because we're Man United, because everybody is good, man.
For sure. And that also brings us to, I want to touch briefly upon, we have not discussed this, but there is a transfer market saga going on. So there's a lot of, buzz and rumor mills spinning really hard. So one thing we know for sure is that Ferran Torres is now signed by Barcelona. And he was a player at Man City, 21-year-old, whom I regard as a very good player. But my 2 cents are, I think we overpaid for him. I think the overall deal comes to 65 million, especially given the crisis we are in. I don't know where they're finding the money. And that segues to the other point of La Liga and my team, Barcelona, and how we are suffering, as I like to put it, because we had a COVID outbreak before the game against Mallorca. And our team was basically a joke, I think, that went out. But it was reassuring nevertheless, because I think Javi spoke about it as well. And typical of all footballing leagues, La Liga refused to cancel the games. So they had to play with what they had. And we had 10 players who were out with COVID and a couple of additional injuries as well. So it was good to see youngsters step in and snatch 1 point. Luke de Jong scored the 1 goal for Barcelona to send us through, and Ter Stegen made a crazy last-minute save, and I think that secured us 3 points. So now we look ahead to the next game, because just keep hoping and keep pushing.
Yeah, I mean, COVID cases everywhere, and former Barcelona player Lionel Messi also tested positive recently, Aniket. So, I mean, we talked about this at length last time, just the impact of COVID across sporting leagues all across the world. So, do actually listen to our previous episode, and if you haven't, when we spoke about just the impact that COVID outbreaks have had and all of these sporting leagues. By the way, speaking of the transfer market, Newcastle, under the new management or the new Middle East ownership, just I think signed Trippier from Atletico. So that's a decent signing. I think they got him for like 12 million or something, which is a bargain, I think. So we'll see. Big things are coming for Newcastle. A lot of money coming into St. James's Park. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, it's also now a never kind of situation, right? Because they are in the relegation battle, and it would be a tough year if you get relegated, because coming back is never easy, even though Newcastle have all the funds at their disposal right now.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how Newcastle head from here, because this half of the year is going to be very interesting for them.
Yeah, indeed. We spoke about COVID and the impact it has had. Speaking of COVID, let's switch gears to tennis, Aniket, because the Australian Open is around the corner. Starts on the 17th of January. So we spoke about Novak Djokovic and him possibly not playing the Australian Open because we don't know if he has taken the vaccine or not yet, which means that to me he hasn't taken the vaccine because he hasn't made it public. But looks like the Australian Open and the organizers finally gave him an exemption to play the Australian Open. I think he tweeted out and said he's ready to fly to Australia because he got the exemption from the Australian Open organizers. Apparently, in the report that I read, he was cleared to play in the Australian Open by 2 independent panel of medical experts. So I don't know what questions were asked, but I'm assuming he was asked questions about would you be open to quarantining and all of that stuff. So I don't know what exactly went into the exemption process, but looks like he's going to play in the Australian Open.
So how do you feel about that, Gautam? I'm just curious.
I guess if you are not vaccinated or if you are not disclosing or making it public that you are vaccinated or not, you have to go through certain process, right? You have to quarantine for X number of days that a normal fully vaccinated player might not have to do. So it comes down to what the organizers say. I usually lean on the organizers because they do their due diligence with the medical experts. If they have cleared him to play, so be it. That's where I stand.
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree with you. I think they at the ground are the best to make the decision. And it's also good to see we'll have the 9-time Australian Open winner coming back for his maybe 10th. Let's see. It's interesting from a tennis fans' point of view to see Novak Djokovic in the Australian Open. So we'll find out. I think time will tell how this basically spirals out. And I'm not sure. I couldn't read. At least I didn't find anything that said he's going to be quarantining for 10 days. So I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so.
How that's going to work out. But we will try and keep a tab on this to see and update our listeners next time.
Yeah, I'm saying he probably has to operate with a different set of rules than the fully vaccinated players. That's all.
For sure. I think that's the least they have to do. I mean, if you're letting someone come in, I think that's the least that they follow more stringent rules. So,
yeah.
Yep.
And speaking of comebacks, Aniket, Naomi Osaka is also making a return to the Australian Open or just to tennis action after 4 months. Remember last time she crashed out of Wimbledon, I believe.
Even US Open, right? So
even US Open, she did not participate. She said she was not going to participate in it. So she wanted some kind of a mental break as well as a physical break, I think. So
and the Olympics. So it was, I think, first started with the Olympics where it was a lot of was expected of her because she was in Japan.
Correct. So all of this happened. So she wanted a mental break. So we'll see what happens in the Australian Open because I think she's a really talented player. And we will have one of our subscribers joining us once the Australian Open concludes. So we are really looking forward to having him on to discuss all of this and much more in tennis.
I'm excited because he knows his tennis. So it'll be fun discussion just to chat with him. So looking forward to that. With that being said, we can now go on to India's favorite game, which is cricket. So, Gautam, do you want to update us with what's happening in the cricketing world?
So, I think right now, I know there's a lot of cricketing. There are at least 3. I think there are 3 series going on right now in tandem. But I think biggest news by far is coming from New Zealand, where Bangladesh is playing Test series in New Zealand, and they actually won convincingly.
There it is. Finds the gap, and Bangladesh have finally conquered the World Test champions and now have their first ever Test victory over New Zealand, home or away. It's taken 16 attempts against New Zealand, but historic ground has now been broken.
For Bangladesh to come out and then win as convincingly as they did, and just to give some context, New Zealand made 328 in the first innings and Bangladesh came back and made 458. And then in the second innings, when New Zealand batted, Ibadat Hussain is a decent medium-fast seam bowler, Aniket. He's probably best to play in New Zealand because the pitches really suit him. He got 6 for 46 and they skittled New Zealand out for 169. And they ended up, I think the target was set to about 40 or something. And they ended up winning it quite convincingly. So 17-game unbeaten streak came to an end.
So it's not wrong to say that they dismantled the World Test champions in their home ground, right? And
Oh, yeah.
obviously this is the first of the series. I think it's a 3-match series, Gautam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the first, so it'll be nice to see what happens. But you said everything that I wanted to say. So
I just wanted to point that out at the top because that is some huge news for Bangladesh, because Bangladesh has been around for quite some time now, and they're really, really passionate bunch of people out in Bangladesh. They have really almost a cult-like following with cricket there. So for them to win away from home is a huge, huge result for them. So that's that. But have you been following any of the Ashes, Aniket? Because even if you're not following, I've been following the Ashes. I think I watched the first 2 Test matches for the most part because it was a very convenient time for us in India. England are struggling. They're 3-0 down. They've already lost the Ashes. The 4th Test is on right now. They have just a crisis of confidence right now. They've lost literally all their games convincingly. Questions are being asked about the coach. Questions are being asked about the captain. Looks like everybody's going to stay put for now because you know how Ashes is seen as this big be-all, end-all of all kinds of cricket in England or Australia. I don't know why. But yeah, I believe after this, some heads are going to roll. Most likely the coach is going to go, I think. But yeah, man. And also add this to the fact that England are again ravaged by COVID. They have all of their, I believe, all of their coaching management out except for one guy, Graham Thorpe. So it's just an awful situation to be in.
yeah, and just to update our listeners with what's happening, I think the first test was won by Australia with 9 wickets. The second with 275 runs, and the third one by innings and 14 runs. So it just gets better and better for Australia, or like worse and worse for England. And obviously, in this current 4th test, Australia are 126 for 3, and England are yet to bat, right? And it's day 1, session 3. And it's also being played down under, right? It's being played in Australia.
Correct.
So England is visiting Australia. So it's going to be tough, yeah. I mean, questions have to be answered. We'll see what happens.
It's interesting that Gary Kirsten came out. He wrote an article and said that he if given a chance, he wants to coach the English side, which you don't often see people do. He's kind of openly pitching for the coaching job for England, which is kind of interesting for at least the test side. So we'll see. I've never seen this happen before. Especially, it's very uncharacteristic of Gary Kirsten, but I guess he needs some employment somewhere. So he seems to be an ideal candidate, if you ask me, because he has the track record.
Yeah, he's just putting it out there in the universe to see how it works out, I guess. Yeah, it's a powerful way.
Yeah,
So,
but I think we should come to in India taking on South Africa in South Africa. Second test is on now, but we won't talk about the second test match. But first test recently concluded. Aniket, I don't know if you caught any of the action or not, but man, again, we spoke about over the episodes about how bowling wins you test matches and how India has the best bowling side that they've ever had in their history. And they are coming through literally every time, man. They're just relentless. The batting seems to be very sketchy for the most part, except for the openers. The middle order is just fragile. Kohli is out of form. Pujara is out of form. Rahane is out of form. But still, it doesn't matter because there is Jasprit Bumrah and Mohammad Shami calling the shots.
I think that basically summarizes what happened in the first test, right? Because I did watch the last 2 days, and I remember I think we went in the last day requiring 6 wickets to actually win the game, and our bowlers did a good job to get it to us. I remember Ravichandran Ashwin getting the last 2 to actually win the game for us, and I think those were his first wickets of this tournament, right? So
correct.
And the bowlers have done well. Which is very interesting because I felt I wanted to add this. It's too early, but you didn't add Shardul Thakur in your list of...
They call him Lord Thakur.
Lord Thakur. All right, but he's put in a performance maybe that deserves that title. I don't know. It's too early to say again. I'm always apprehensive about talking about a game that's going on because things can change very quickly in sport. And I think that's one thing we've learned early on in this podcast is that you don't make predictions, right? So
Yeah.
but it was just to give context to the listeners again. India won the first test. I would say pretty comfortably. Would you agree with that, Gautam?
Oh yeah, they won by 113 runs. South Africa never had any chance. They never got past 200 in both of their innings.
Right. So with that being said, the second one, it seemed India was a little in a topsy-turvy kind of a situation until Shardul Thakur came on and pulled on a 7 for 61, if I'm
Yeah.
right. And that was a great 7-wicket spell that he did. Because what's happened now is that India is batting with 85 for 2. That's where it stands. I think the game starts sometime now, so we will not be reporting what happens.
Yeah, that is the end of day 2 that you just said. Yeah.
Exactly, 85 for 2. And we did speak briefly about Cheteshwar Pujara, who seemed to come on in a very aggressive way after the fall of Mayank Agarwal, I believe. So, and Mayank Agarwal was let out with an LBW. He's trying to leave a ball that was coming right in for the wickets. So that was I don't know what to say.
But yeah, Pujara's career as well as Rahane's career is hanging by a thread right now. I think they've been given quite a long rope. Rahane got out to a first ball duck in the first innings of the second test. Pujara has also fallen way short. Now Pujara, as you said, has come out and is playing his shots. Prem Panikar, who's a really good follow on Twitter, if you don't follow him, has pointed out how when Pujara plays his shots, he's actually better than his natural style, which is to keep blocking and tire the bowlers out. But we'll see what happens, because their backs are definitely against the wall, because there are people like Vihari, there are people like Shreyas Iyer waiting in the wings. So they've already been given such a long rope. I think this is their last hurrah if they don't perform. So this is pretty much it, Aniket, because remember Shreyas Iyer played against New Zealand at home a few months ago and he made a century. So there are quality players waiting in the wings for them. So time is running out for both Pujara and Rahane.
And I think it is time I don't know what the right word is, reshuffle or even re-look at our batting lineup, because it's been a constant thread of disappointment how the batsmen or batters are playing. And
Right.
What is interesting is our bowlers are it's an opinion. I mean, and it I think to some degree it's backed by facts, is the bowlers are actually pulling us out of this situation time and again. So
Yes.
well, it is what it is, and let's hope our team does well.
Yeah, I think if India were not winning as many games, Pujara and Rahane would have been dropped way back, because they are winning. I think they are able to afford to give them more chances, which I think is fair, because both of them have been good servants for the game. But yeah, man, time is running out. You can only at the top level, if you're not performing, it's pretty cutthroat, right? So we'll see if Pujara and Rahane can make some runs in the second innings.
I wanted your thoughts on KL Rahul's captaincy.
I don't see any huge difference, because it's just been half a test match so far. When you're bowling, it's pretty obvious who to bowl and what times to bowl each bowler, because they already have preset plans, right? The captains usually comes in when you're making decisions like when to declare, or you're making a decision like let's say you need 300 on the final day, you want to chase that down, or do you make the decision to just play for the draw, right? So all of these things have not come to the fore yet. I mean, based on what I've seen so far, he seems okay. But it is quite interesting, because it was all set for Kohli to play that day, and all of a sudden KL Rahul comes out for the toss, because Kohli had a back niggle. So you should probably keep a close eye on that as well, because Rahul Dravid, in fact, just the day before, backed the captain completely and said even though he had so many distractions, the morale that he's had, the camaraderie that he's had has been top. Just been really good. So it was kind of just unfortunate that Kohli had to miss out with the back niggle. So he's going to play his 100th test in Bangalore apparently, because he's at 98 right now. So next match is going to be his 99th, and the 100th test is going to be at Bangalore. So we'll see if the BCCI honors him with some kind of golden cap or whatever they do when players cross the 100 test mark. So I will keep a close eye on that.
So let's go on to something you wanted to add, Gautam. So I'll let you take this away. So I see you wanted to talk about the Bulls in NBA. So please tell us, because my recommendation today, by the way, is related to the Bulls. So
Okay. This probably makes me very, very excited, right, Aniket? Because of all the American sports that I follow, NBA is probably my favorite game, right? It's just a wonderful sport to watch, and I've been following it for quite some time now. It's even more exciting for me because my favorite team, Chicago Bulls, is sitting on top of the Eastern Conference. Let me go back just a little bit, right? Now, Chicago Bulls, if throughout its history, let's say Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan go hand to hand. So they won the 6 championships. Jordan left in '98 and all of that, right? So after that, they've had very little success, right? Now the only bright spot for them is they got in 2008, I believe, they got Derrick Rose as a number 1 pick. Now he was really, really good. He was the MVP in one season. He was the youngest MVP ever, the most valuable player for the season, which means that he was the best player in the league. They made the playoffs. They went deep into the playoffs. They never made it to the NBA Finals, but they're a really good team. They're a contender. Unfortunately, Derrick Rose hurt himself. He had an ACL injury, so he was out for a season. He came back and had another big injury, and he was out for another season. And then things spiraled, right? So from that point on, Bulls were just above average to below average and nothing more than that. They had Jimmy Butler in the middle, who was really good, but then he left because he did not like the situation he was in. And on top of all of this, there was in the front office, there were these 2 guys called Gar Forman and John Paxson, or they're called Gar Pax together, right? They made all kinds of dumb decisions. They had the ear of the owner, so the owner really liked them. The Bulls seemed like all they were caring about was the bottom line. They were making money. They were in a big market, right? Chicago is a huge market, and they always make money. The owner of the Chicago Bulls is also the owner of a baseball team called the Chicago White Sox. So the talk was that all of the money that the Bulls were making was being put into the White Sox system for them to get more players and whatnot. So all of that happened, and I think finally luck ran out and time ran out for both Gar Forman and John Paxson, and finally they were let go. Now there's a new guy in the front office who was hired a couple of years ago called Arturo Karnushkovas. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He comes in with a good reputation. He's made some smart moves. He got some really good players. He's got some really good bench players. He's slowly building a roster. They added this guy called Nicholas Vucevic. He was really good from Orlando Magic. They already have a guy called Zach LaVine who's really, really good, and they gave him a good contract. He's probably their best player. He's a really, really good player. They got this guy called Demar DeRozan from the San Antonio Spurs, who's really good. Who's good, but we never thought he would be this good. I mean, he is like a level 2 player, right? There's a level 1 player, the likes of LeBron James, the likes of Giannis and all those guys, Steph Curry and all those. He's a level 2 player, right? He's like, there's one level 1A, 1B, and he's like 2A or 2B, right? But this season he's been insane. Now he's been punching so much above his weight, Aniket, that he's had 2 buzzer-beating game winners back-to-back.
DeRozan to win it! Feeds DeRozan. DeRozan, pump fake for the win. Got it again!
He's apparently the first player to do it on back-to-back days as well. So the Chicago Bulls seem red hot right now. They played 35 games. They're sitting top of the Eastern Conference, which is there are 2 conferences in the NBA. They're sitting on top of the Eastern Conference with 25 wins and 12 losses.
So I've been watching NBA on like kind of reels, just highlights. I've not caught a live game for a while now, but I look forward, like I said, once the routine sets in, once I'm awake, I know when I'm going to be awake and when I'm going to sleep, then I can start working towards watching sports again. But no, I'm going to keep an eye out. So with that being said, Gautam, thank you I really liked the way you spoke about this, because it gave me a lot of context. It was, I think, a brief run through Bulls in the last couple of years. So thank you for that. It was very insightful.
The only thing I want to add was that I want to go and watch a Bulls game this year. So hopefully I'm able to do it. Hopefully the Omicron keeps away, but we'll see what happens. But man, I really want to go catch a Bulls game.
You are in Chicago, so I see that as a eventual thing that will happen.
Yeah,
so
man. Hopefully.
I'm not too worried. Yeah.
Hopefully, for sure. We are at the end of the podcast, Aniket. Please do write to us at contact@newslaundry.com, or there is a link. The link will be in the podcast notes, where you can definitely write to us and talk to us and give us some feedback. Good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. Just we need some feedback from you. The other thing, obviously, is please do subscribe to News Laundry, because when the public pays, the public is served. When corporations pay, the corporations are served. So please go to News Laundry and hit that subscribe button. There are whole lots of options for you to subscribe on a short term or a long term. We recommend that you subscribe on a long term basis. As I keep saying, Aniket and me met through the News Laundry group, and here we are, right? So this is a great organization to be a part of. So please definitely catch any of our ground reports, our podcasts, this is just one of many podcasts that we have. So please go to newslaundry.com and hit that subscribe button.
So we'd like the listeners to reach out to us if they have anything particular in mind, or if they have someone they want to listen to, because that's another thing we've been actively, I won't say actively, but that's been simmering in the back burners, Gautam, is we've always been talking about trying to get a couple of experts. We had Amit Verma.
All right, let's end with some recommendations. Aniket, what do you have?
We've discussed this n number of times, and I want to recommend the listeners to go and check out The Last Dance. So this is the final season of the Bulls with MJ, Scott Pippen, Phil Jackson, and it's such a spectacular, well-produced series that I would recommend. Even I would stick a limb out and say, even if you're not into basketball, I think you would find this very interesting. Totally. So it's that's my recommendation for the listeners today. How about you?
My recommendation is Siddharth Monga's interview with Ravichandran Ashwin on the cricketmonthly.com, which is part of ESPN Cricket Info. It's such a brilliant interview, because Ashwin talks about how he works batsmen out, and he goes into specifics as to how he worked out Manas Labuschagne, and when he was in Australia, how he worked out Steve Smith, and what went into planning that into bowling that series, right? This is just one of many things that he spoke about. He was very, like we always keep saying, he's a tremendous video blogger, so he's very candid in every interview or every press conference that he does. So he talks about how he was upset that Ravi Shastri made some comments indirectly about him in the media and so on. So definitely catch that out. It's Siddharth Monga's interview of Ravichandran Ashwin.
So I'd seen your recommendation, Gautam, and I read it, and one thing I found super interesting is just the takeaway of how important preparation is in life in general. So what we think about athletes to be super talented folks who show up, this only tells us more about how important preparation is in life to be successful and ace your game. So thanks for this recommendation, because I had joy reading it.
Awesome. So I guess we are at that point where we are going to end this episode. Aniket, thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, stay safe, and Happy New Year to all of our listeners.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.